how sought after are programmers within the games industry? And I guess the question is, you know, how sought after are programmers, how sought after are artists and animators, how sought after are designers, scripters, that kind of thing. Is it fair to say that programmers are probably the most sought after?
Yes, I mean, programmers are the backbone of any game. Without a programmer, you can't have a game. They are, if you like, the bricklayers. If we were talking about a house, they're the guys that actually build the house. The artists are the ones who actually create the materials that the programmers use to build the house, and the designers are the architects. It blurs slightly depending on what type of game you've got. You've also got designers who are level designers, and they're level creators. They can be scripters, they can be dialogue creators as well. But yeah, very much that the programmers are very much sought after.
I think just programming's it's a harder discipline in some degree. I mean, we want programmers to do things faster and more efficient every single product cycle. They're under a constant set of, you know, learning. They've got to learn new tools, new engines, new techniques, new hardware. I think in the time that, you know, John's probably been making games, we've probably seen 20, 25 different sets of hardware come through. And it's a real challenge for the programmers then to keep on top of it. So as a discipline, it's probably more difficult. But then we've got these subspecialisms. So we're looking at now, you know, having, particularly social gaming's made it really quite difficult. Blizzard have 4 programming economists. So they got 4 economists and turned them into programmers to control the economy in World of Warcraft. So we're seeing the programming task, you know, the usual stuff, which was like render pipeline and AI and physics. We're now seeing a bunch of other things come into that particular area. It's making it more difficult.
I think also we've seen some old stuff come back. So what I used to do 2D art for 7 years in all the old Sensible games, and I've noticed a lack of skilled 2D artists because people have done 3D for so long. Suddenly, you've got all your iPhones and iPads and your browser games which demand good, controlled 2D art. And actually, I've noticed that in many companies I've worked in recently, they're quite valuable people to have in the company, and they're in a short supply. Those guys, and you know, and also good quality 3D animators are another issue where there seems to be a shortage. If you look at the consistently things where you're walking into companies and there's some roles to be that remain open, there seem to be the ones that remain open.
So actually, the lack of 2D art skills is a great segue. So Aaron Reeves is saying, and you can answer this question brilliantly. He's untainted by the sort of the moving on in terms of his skill set. He's a student. He's a game design student. His question is, how long roughly does it take to build a relatively simple original design indie game from concept through alpha, beta, into master?
Right, it depends on the platform. That's the most important question to ask. Let's assume you pick iPhone, which is the easiest one to do the whole lot on your own at the moment, and actually get out into the market as well, because in theory it can be done. You're going to need probably minimum of 2 guys. Someone to do the art, someone to do the programming, design between you, and work out the production process with Apple, which you can just about work out between 2 of you, so that'll work. Time it will take depends on the ambition of the game. I would always recommend, and we would all always recommend to newcomers, to scale back the ambition of their game. A good starter game is a game with no errors, which means everything's polished and perfect. To make sure everything's polished, you've got to make sure there's not too much in there in the first place to polish. Otherwise you create this huge rod for your own back. So I'd recommend a small ambition game on the iPhone, and with a couple of guys, 2 or 3 committed guys, you can probably do something in about 4 months. You know, going through that game, and that game cycle of start to finish that he's talking about is the most single valuable thing to all of us in this industry. You've gone through from start to finish, and once you've done that 2 or 3 times, then you have real value to us in the industry.
I think that's true. I totally agree. It's getting a game complete. A lot of people have great ideas. Some can produce, most can produce a great prototype. A few can get into a vertical slice. How many can say they can finish a game? Absolutely right, John. But
then it's about accepting and understanding what it is that you're trying to do. So if you look at your game and you know you're not going to finish it in 4 months, something's wrong, right? Or something's going to kind of come unstuck. So stop and, you know, reduce it down. You know, take John's kind of point and just knock a couple of features out and bring it back inside of 4 months each time, so that you do actually end up with something at the end of 4 months.
Yeah, don't design Call of Duty 5 for the iPhone. You know, it's not going to happen. You know, look at a match 3 game and take a little twist on it with different graphics, slightly different rules, and produce that. That's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough to prove to us as professionals, you know what you're doing.
It's not a mystery that some of the top-selling iPhone games, Angry Birds, 2D, Flight Control,
Absolutely.
2D. There's no mystery in that. It's a team that's got a clear single idea, which is very workable, and to polish it and make it nice. And yet they're a little repetitive as games, but they are well produced, well thought out, well planned, well executed bits of software. And that's exactly what John's saying. People will not criticise you. If your game's a bit short and a bit repetitive, but nicely produced, that's less criticism there.
So here's a question that sort of relates to that. Gary asks, should he focus on his studies or should he focus on getting professional experience? And this talks about the Angry Birds and all this kind of stuff. So should he be building games that he's trying to launch commercially, getting professional experience, or should he concentrate on studies, his Train2Game studies?
It's a difficult to answer because he's not going to get the professional experience without the knowledge and the ability. He's only going to get the knowledge and ability by concentrating on his studies. So until he's gone far enough through the course, and this is what I was saying about the way that the courses have been created when we were talking about the artist earlier, you have to understand the facts, the knowledge, then you have to be able to utilize that knowledge, and then you have to be able to prove that ability. Until he's done that, he's not going to be able to get the business experience because he'll try, but he'll just fail because he hasn't got the basic raw materials to work with.
I think there's a controlled delivery there, though. So if I learn to write tic-tac-toe, I should, as I've learned to write tic-tac-toe, I should write tic-tac-toe. If the next episode in my learning is about multiplayer, then I go back and make my tic-tac-toe multiplayer. If the next lesson is about, moving it off the original platform onto another platform, then I take tic-tac-toe and I move it platforms. So there's like a lifting. If I do what my skills will allow me, and as I learn a new skill, apply it to the thing I'm doing, the product and the skills are side by side, you'll end up with an absolutely fabulously good-looking multiplayer tic-tac-toe, right? But to me, that's kind of take what I've learned and apply it to something and keep building on the thing that I'm developing all the time.
Okay. Thomas is asking an unusual question, actually. So Thomas is saying, I've recruited 12 people via T2G for his team. What steps do we suggest, and what steps would we suggest to him to protect the rate of growth within his company?
If I can take this one, I gave a live internet training a couple of months ago just on about setting up your own team, setting up your own development studio. It wasn't a step-by-step guide on how to do it. Rather, it was a collection of business mantra, words of wisdom from some of the greatest people in the industry out there, some real icons, Peter Molyneux, Sid Meier, etc., etc., and they gave me their thoughts. And I'd like to answer Thomas's question in a slightly different way. He says he has 12 people in his team already. How should he grow that team? I would ask why he's got 12 people. It may be the perfect amount of people he's already got, in which case he doesn't need to grow it. It could be too small for what he's got. It could be too big. The thing that I would say is, what does his project need? What does his company need to deliver that project? And the first thing that anybody looking to put a team together is what does that team look to deliver? What sort of project does it look to deliver? Then look at the needs of the project, because the project, the company is a vehicle for delivering the project. Without a solid basis, a commercial business behind, that great project idea is never going to reach the market because your company's going to go bust beforehand. So then look at the business plan, then look at the project needs, then put the team together to develop and deliver that project. That's what you need to be looking at there. Okay. So I can't answer that in any great detail without knowing what he's looking to deliver.
Well, just to sort of like go on a little bit on what Tony's been saying, actually, a good development team is an efficient development team, which means as few people as possible, providing they're good. The communication skills you need to manage 12 people, and the communication problems you get between people who don't get on or don't talk properly, the more people you have, the more risk you run with that. Also, just maintaining everyone's interest, maintaining everyone's pay. You know, the burden of more people is a reality, a real reality to us who run games development teams. And the idea that because you're big is great is not necessarily correct. It's how small can you be to still deliver excellent quality? Is the question you've got to be asking yourself.
Yeah.
It's just all the time in your career. That's
I think
true.
you probably know this better than I do, but Chris Sawyer that's created Transport Tycoon and Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yeah.
We're talking about 2 or 3 people producing a game that'll ship 5-6 million units each time.
It was always an effort, in fact, to get Chris to add more people to his team. He wanted to keep his team very
We
small.
did Sensible Soccer with a 3-man team. Started with Can I follow with 2 or 3?
Phenomenal. I've got one more question that I think...
Can I just say one more thing about the logistics? Just the moment you get to a team of 8, 9, 10, 11 people, you're already looking at a point where you need a full-time project management person, communicator, manager to run that team, just to handle the communications and the conduits between the different departments. Think very carefully about what it needs.
I've got one more question, and then we're going to wind right up. Transferable skills. Someone's on the animation course from Iron Core on the via Skype. Are those skills transferable?
Absolutely, yes.
What about programming? Are they transferable?
We just met someone in Sweden. We did something recently, and he has literally done some training in games and moved to work in TV using animation. To answer that question perfectly.
I'm going to have to wind up. We've got a few seconds left. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks, John. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Tony, for coming in. Brilliant session tonight, and we'll see you next time.
Good night.